We got no microphone, so I'll have to shout. You can hear me. Want to make an announcement first before we get started?
Before we get started, let me make this announcement. There'll be in Conway here a local food potluck supper Sunday, February 9 at 5 p.m. until all the food is gone in the Conway Town Hall. Bring a dish to share featuring locally grown ingredients and join your neighbors, friends, and friends you've yet to meet for an evening of tasty food and great conversation. Beverages provided. For information, contact Mary McClintock at 413-522-5923 or at Mary. You want to give us your email address?
No.
Yeah, I'll go over and find me, I'll give it to you. It's MMCCLINTO. But we're looking for folks to help organize it too. There's a few of us, four folks, but especially looking for folks to organize and start thinking now about great local grown food things, or shot, or grown, or fish, or whatever. Food. Food been really good.
Okay,
The number was 5932.
Yeah.
5932.
It says 5923.
Sorry I didn't bring it up till.
Okay. All right, so we have a quorum. 25 is the quorum for Conway, and we obviously have more than 25 for this special town meeting. My name is Nick Filler, and I am the duly elected moderator of the town, which doesn't mean that I'll be very moderate, but that's what the position is. I think you know the select board here. In case you don't, we have John O'Rourke, Jim Moore, and Rick Bean. In not quite that order. Jim Moore, John O'Rourke, and Rick Bean. Okay. The town administrator, Tom Hutch, sitting there. We're going to recognize him, and he's not from Conway. So can we, just in case anyone has any questions of him, shall we recognize him and permit him to speak? Yes. Okay. All right. Now, Ginny, our town clerk, is right over there, and will be happy to read the entire 4-article warrant unless there's a motion to waive the reading. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
You're off the hook this time. Okay. We have other dignitaries present. The chief of police is right there, Ken Lumet. We have the fire chief here, perhaps for good reason tonight, and others. We have 4 articles to cover. So we're going to do this as expeditiously as possible. Nonetheless, I just wanted to remind you of the rules of how this works. And the rules are that you raise your hand to be recognized. If I recognize you, please stand, give your name. If you want to say where you live, that's fine too, but just state your name. And please remember that speak loudly and turn in the direction of the greater majority of the people around you so they can hear you speak. We have we try to allow people to speak once, and then, if necessary, respond to someone's question about what they've spoken about, but not to engage, in a dialogue, especially between 2 people, while the rest of us sit by and watch. We try to limit the amount of time spent on each article. Obviously, there's only 4 articles tonight. That should be self-limiting, more or less. And at any time during the discussion, anyone can call for a vote to basically stop the discussion, which is called moving the question. You don't just shout it out. You need to be recognized, and then you move the question, and you go immediately to a 2/3 vote to see if you're going to stop the discussion and vote. These articles, one of them, let's see, well, initially it was capitalization, capital stabilization will require a 2/3 vote. The other articles, Ginny, are we in agreement, are majority articles? Yeah, so the first 3 articles will be just majority vote. Majority vote will be by voice vote. Those of you who have been to these town meetings before know how well attuned my ears are to the yeas and the nays, and therefore the moderator's decision on the voice vote is final. Nonetheless, even though it's final, if someone does challenge and there's a second and wants a show of hands, especially with there only being 4 articles, we'll be happy to do it that way. If someone wants a secret ballot, written ballot, we're going to vote on that and see whether that is really necessary. So that's the basic rules. I think we won't bother with the rule about reconsideration within 45 minutes because by 45 minutes after this town meeting will be over. So I don't think we need to worry about that rule. Okay. Are there any questions about the procedures of the town meeting, special town meeting? Hearing none. Then, and having already voted to waive the reading of the warrant, we will proceed with a motion for Article 1. Is there a motion on Article 1 regarding $13,000?
I have a motion. I move that the town transfer $13,000 from the undesignated funds account, free cash, for an audit of town funds.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, is there discussion about this requested transfer of $13,000 for an audit for the town?
I have a question.
Yes, could you stand up please and say who you are?
Michelle Wilson, Bardwell's Ferry Road.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, having some familiarity with auditing, how much more is involved than what town auditor would have done?
Fair
Just
question. Does
curious.
someone want to respond to that? What in addition to the town, did you all hear the question?
I'll take a stab at it, and then if need be, maybe our treasurer who's here. So a town audit is basically done by an outside agency. We've used the town auditor that we presently have for, I believe, 2 or 3 past audits, 2 past audits. So those are fiscal year 12 audit and a fiscal year 11 audit. And so fiscal year goes from July 1st through June 30th, which is our financial fiscal year. So last budget period, which is a year ago, we decided not to do an audit for the recent fiscal year because we were trying to keep down costs. We'd had 2 audits prior to that that were pretty good audits, we'll change this, do that, but they look good. We thought, we're good, we don't need an audit. The reason we're looking to do an audit is that we're moving forward on our long-planned highway garage. And because of that, we will be coming to the voters to ask for their permission to go out for money for that. In order to do that and to get a better rate, or in order to do it at all, we have to have an audit of the most recent fiscal year. So back then, we didn't put in the budget because we thought we were saving money. Given the year that's gone, we realized that we have to have an audit for going forward with our hope to get the town garage done. So that's the reason we're coming to the voters to ask for this coming from free cash. And the audit will be the same as any audit we've had over the last few years.
Are there other questions or comments that someone wants to make before we vote on this first article? None, not ready to vote? Oh, yes, sir.
Could you just clarify why this needs to be done at a special town meeting and couldn't wait until the regular town meeting in
And just state your name, please.
May? Jim Bosman.
Tell you what, I'll have our town administrator answer that because he's been working with the garage committee in their deliberations.
Our hope is that the audit can be done before the annual town meeting or whenever it is we have a proposal to the town to borrow money, so that when that is approved, if it is approved, we will be ready to borrow the money at that point and start construction this coming summer, rather than waiting another year to start the project.
How long does it take to complete an audit or time?
Having been at the last audit, the field part took about 3 days. And so they're out here for 3 days going through all our books and so forth. And then after that, it's sort of up to their workload. And so we hear back from them within a few weeks saying, here's the preliminary, we look at that. And so it's a matter of only 3 or 4 days for them to do their field work in our offices. But then it takes a while for them to actually do it and get it approved and so forth. So again, we need to get a jump start on this so that we don't hold up the requirement to get the town garage done.
Okay, other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Alice Giuliani. taxes?
Explain that a little bit more.
Tanya is an auditor.
What do you?
Oh,
Tanya.
maybe
Tanya,
Tanya, the
wanna
chair of
answer that
our
one?
finance committee, wants to answer that one?
I guess, what do you mean by that? Because we look, when we do an audit, we look at the budget and what gets approved and make sure, you know, what was actually spent, you know, is under the budget, the amount budgeted and voted by town meeting. We tie out, you know, your anticipated revenue numbers and stuff like that. So I guess I'm not really sure what you mean by.
Well, if you're wondering if the audit determines whether or not the assessors have assessed properly, the answer is no.
No, I
The
mean, we look
auditor
to make
does
sure
not
you're.
substitute their judgment for the assessor's judgment on what's
That's what I was wondering.
right. No, that would not be a function of an audit. There was another hand I thought I saw. Yes, sir.
How long does
Could you
the
stand up, please, and
audit-
give your name?
Yeah,
So
Don
people can-
Siegel. How long does the audit last in terms of borrowing ability before it would have to be redone?
I'd have to get an official answer, but it would depend on the time that we're borrowing. We have to have the immediate closing of that last fiscal year ready. So if we were gonna close anytime, if we were gonna borrow anytime after July 1st, 2014, we would have to have that year audited, I believe.
Okay, anything else? Are you ready to vote? All those in favor of expending the $13,000 from free cash signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, is there a motion for Article 2?
I have a motion.
Okay,
I move that the town request legislation allowing Bob Baker to serve on the fire department until age 67, the date of his retirement, or until his reappointment, whichever occurs first, provided, however, that deductions from regular compensation of Bob Baker shall not be made under Chapter 32 of the general laws for any service subsequent to his reaching the age of 65 in connection with his service to the town for retirement or pension purposes.
motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. So we want to give Bob 20 more years? Is that the deal here?
Good wishes.
Do we have an explanation?
Explanation.
The state law requires that if a public safety official, a paid public safety official, is to work beyond age 65, that does require special legislation. The law is that they can't do it, so in order to allow them to do it, which has been the intent of the select board in this case, in order to be compliant with state law, town meeting has to request special legislation, and the legislature has to pass it. I've been working with Representative Kulik's office to get this done, and this wording came from his office.
Yes, sir.
Pleasant, my family. I'd like to amend this article. I'd like to amend it by striking the words after department until the age of 65, comma, the date of his retirement of, and then after reappointment, I'd like to strike whichever first occurs. So that my amendment would read in its entirety, Article 2, to see if the town will vote to request legislation allowing Robert Baker to serve on the fire department until his non-reappointment, providing, however, the deductions from regular compensation of Robert Baker should not be made under Chapter 32 of the general laws for any service subsequent to his reaching the age of 65 in connection with his service to the town for retirement or pension purposes, or take any action relative thereto.
Okay, so the effect of the amendment is to leave it open-ended on age.
Right.
And that basically he can continue to serve until he's not reappointed by the select board?
Exactly right,
Okay, is there a second to that motion for amendment?
Second.
Okay, so you know how this works. We're gonna discuss just the amendment now until we reach the point of voting on the amendment. The amendment will either pass or fail, and then we'll vote on the main motion, either as amended if the amendment passes, or as originally made if the amendment doesn't pass. Does that make sense?
I have a clarification. please.
Clarification?
Yeah, Clayton Jones, Husak Road. Given that Representative Cusack, whatever, made the suggestion, is it within the Massachusetts laws to actually be able to respect an amendment like that?
Do we know the answer to that question?
We couldn't hear that.
The question is whether or not, since this is a motion to have legislation passed to allow someone to work beyond 65, the question is whether it has to have an age limit or not in order for the legislature to take it up. And so that's going to be the question that's being presented right now to the town administrator.
I don't know the answer to that question. It is the case in other special legislation that I've seen, and this is the language that we got from Representative Kulik's office.
The 67?
Well,
Or
that.
an age, an
well,
age,
that-
there is an age.
And
It was an
an
age.
be in there. I've seen other ages as well.
So we don't know. Tom, you want to?
Yeah, just, I think that's a moot point. This board has the ability to non-reappoint, so age really shouldn't come into matter. The next article, not that we're on that, but mentions the age 70. So we got two different, we're not comparing apples to apples here, so I don't believe that would be a problem.
So we'll find out and.
So
Do you wanna just change
I want to eliminate the age 67.
and put 70 in?
I don't want to put 70 in.
What do you wanna put in?
Nothing. He wants to put nothing in.
I think there has to be an age in this.
99.
Yeah, we'll put 90.
Okay. Quiet.
Diane Cole on Whately Road. The way it's written now is that you have to come back to another town meeting if you want to have him stay on there after 67, because it says the date of his age until 67, whichever comes first.
Right.
So this is the intent is to only have him serve 2 more years?
If the motion as originally
Yeah.
proposed were, in effect, that would be the, I don't know if it's the intent, but that would be the result.
That would be the result, okay, because this would change that.
Okay?
Yeah.
Mary?
Mary McClintock.
Speaking just to the amendment now, right, to the,
Right, to the age thing.
yeah.
Mary McClintock, I live down the bottom of the hill. How did we come up with 67 for this one and 68 and 70 for that one? Is that what Bob or Ron wants, or is this, where the numbers come from?
Those were the original requests that were given to the select board
By whom?
by Bob and Ron.
Okay. All right. Joe?
I think we should, Joe Zagorski, I think we should honor the original request. If that's what they requested, I don't see any reason to extend it to the year 99.
So you would oppose voting down the
I'm
amendment?
opposed to the amendment.
Yes, sir.
Ron Hawks. In regards to the difference in age, when we originally had our meeting with the select board, at the time Mr. Baker retired from the highway department, he had an agreement to work as fire chief for 2 more years, which would have been January of 15, and he'd be 67. And somewhere somebody came up with the idea that we had an agreement that we'd retire at the same time, which January of 15 would make me about 68. So that's where the 2 ages came in. And then the age of 70 for the police officer is what I requested from the select board, and that's what they put in the articles. So that's, you know, the explanation of the age difference.
Okay, so do you have an agreement to retire at the same time as him?
No, it was just a joke that we had.
When do you
All
want
right.
to retire?
Tom?
There's provisions in chapter 415, section about keeping people on and attesting to their health. There's laws governing that, as far as them doing a fitness test, fitness for duty test. So, again, I go back to the board has the ability not to rehire either one of these gentlemen if they feel that they're not fit for the job. And I'd say we could leave this open-ended and move on.
Presumably, I would think that what we're passing is something that would create policy for future employment, for future employee situations. And if that's true, why have an age on it? Because that means anytime anyone else who's an employee of the town wants to retire and make this change in their pension arrangements, then we're constantly passing amendments to this age. So as a matter of policy, for future situations, should it not be more like, until they're not reappointed?
Yep.
Rick Dean, so again, just with more explanation, I think it was, again, 2 years ago, when Bob retired as highway superintendent, he asked that well, Bob can refresh my memory, but he then said, I'd like to stay on for a couple more years as fire chief. And we said, great. So that was a sort of a handshake agreement with the select board. I was newly on the board. That was maybe my first or second meeting. And so we're coming up to the 2 years. That was a year ago, a little more than a year ago, and another year to go. So that's where the 67 came in, through Bob's request to the select board from a year ago. So just again, to point out, so this article is a town meeting vote to then go to the legislature, which I guess is pretty much a done deal, where if we say we want this, they'll say, yes, we'll vote that in. But as other people said, the select board every year reappoints the police chief, the fire chief, the ambulance director. That's our responsibility. We have good people in there, and usually it's a no-brainer. We just say, yes, another year, absolutely fine. But if we change the wording on this, again, our town administrator and the people who have been working on this are thinking, well, I don't know if that's going to fly. So again, the situation is, if we pass this as is rather than the amendment, Bob can serve for another year until age 67, and if we reappoint him, which we may or may not, but we'll talk about it, I think we will, but then next year, if we want to come back with the same wording to 68, we do another town vote a year from now. We want to keep Bob on, we want the legislation. So again, legislation can be from year to year, and the appointment can be from year to year. I'm just worried about changing the wording, and then we're not going to be in compliance with the law. And that was the whole idea of doing this.
Yes, ma'am.
Christina Lankard. I think I was echoing somebody else's, I think it was Tommy's request to strike the age out of it and just continue on till reappointment. I think instead of what Rick suggested, instead of doing another town meeting, if there was, if there was a need for Chief Baker to stay on the department past the age of 67, or even for Ron to stay past the age of 68 and 70 respectively, why should we have yet another meeting when we can just strike out the ages from this article and just leave it at until non-reappointment? That way, if Chief Baker decides he wants to retire at age 67 in another couple of years, he would be able to retire at age 67, and the select board would just not reappoint him, and the same with Ron Hobbs.
Anything else? Ready to vote? No? Okay.
Brian Kuzmeskis, can we vote on the amendment?
All right. You ready to vote?
I'm Cliff Fair, I live in the North Poland section. My question is, what is the liability to the town if we override the state law of 65 and something happens to either Bob or Ron? Will the town be held responsible because we're overriding something that does?
I don't think there's any liability to the town incurs. It's allowed, the state legislature will pass the statute ultimately, so. Yes.
It's already been done, but can we move the question?
Move the question. We ready? Do we vote on moving the question, or are you just ready to vote? We're ready to vote. All right. So we're going to vote on this. All those in favor of the amendment, meaning that there'll be no time limit, no age limit on just the fire chief right now. That's all we're talking about is Article 2. We're going to probably have the same discussion and probably a lot shorter on Article 3. Indicate, signify by saying aye, and that allows the board, selecting board to continue to reappoint year after year, but with no specific age limit. All those in favor of the amendment as proposed, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. It passes. The amendment passes. Now, we go back to the original motion as amended. Okay? So that the motion now reads everything the way it did before, except there's no 67 in there. Now, is there discussion, any more discussion on the main motion? Way in the back.
Tom Cullen. My question is about the last part of the question. It's just not quite clear enough English for me to understand. Is all this just offering to get Mr. Baker past the age limit? I mean, I'm reading all the other stuff about deductions and all that stuff. Is this just strictly allowing him to work longer? Okay.
Other questions about the main motion? Mary?
Have we done this before? Have we done this kind of thing before?
We haven't done it, Conway hasn't done
Conway
it, but
hasn't.
it's commonly done.
And the part about, I don't understand a lot about pensions, but the part about deductions from, shall be, not doing deductions after age 65. The way I read it is that whoever's in a position of, like we're talking about Bob in this case, but it could be either one, that they would normally be paying in towards a pension, and then at age 65, they'd stop paying in towards the pension, and they keep working till 67, and then eventually retire and eventually get the pension. Is that how this reads?
We understand what the impact is of not making deductions for pension.
Does the town also stop making deductions? Or is it just Bob?
Yes, this would put into a legal framework that whoever it is for, and I think it's in both of the articles here, they would not pay into the retirement fund past 65. This is a position that the state Public Employees Retirement Advisory Commission has taken, that once a public safety employee reaches 65, they don't accept retirement income from them anymore on their reading of the law, which also requires retirement at age 65.
Does the town keep paying into the pension?
No.
Nobody, after 65, nobody's paying into the pension.
No.
So it doesn't
Right.
impact, like if somebody retires at age 65, they get the same amount of pension as if they retired at age 68 or 72. That it's not gonna impact the amount of the pension.
Okay, any other questions on the main mark? Yeah.
Let's keep in mind, we got a fire chief that served this town since 1980. He served the highway department for 19 years. I don't think we need to nitpick about what we might have to pay him for retirement or what we might have to do for an extra 2 years. I think he's earned it.
I wasn't asking,
I think
I
he's
wasn't
earned it.
nitpicking, I was just trying to understand what the financial.
My point is, I just think he's earned it. It's just nitpicking.
Okay, are we ready to vote on
All
this?
his life served this town, we're gonna talk about that? Come on.
Okay. Ready for a vote? Okay, all those in favor now, the motion as amended, no age limit, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously, without the age limit. Is there a motion for Article 3?
I'll make a motion. Motion for the town to request, I move that the town request legislation allowing Ron Hawks to serve on the fire department until age 68 and the police department until age 70, the date of his retirement or until his non-appointment, whichever first occurs, provided, however, that deductions from the regular compensation of Ron Hawks shall not be made under Chapter 32 of the general laws or any service subsequent to his reaching the age of 65 in connection with his service to the town for retirement or pension purposes.
Is there a second to that? Second. Okay, is there a motion for an amendment? Mr. Bud.
Moderator, after the words fire department, I'd like to strike the words until the age of 68. After the words police department, strike the words until the age of 70, the date of his retirement. And then after non-appointment, strike the words whichever first occurs.
Is there
I can
a
read
second
you-
to that motion for amendment?
Second.
How did I know? 15 years of being moderator, I know this now. Okay, discussion? Yes.
Do I have to say my name again because I said it before?
No, you don't have to say your name.
Okay. Joe Wilson. Michelle
up, though.
Wilson?
Stand up.
Okay, I wanted to ask this just before the last vote, but going along with, creating policy, I'll use that word, by changing, getting rid of the age requirement. My basic question is, when you're requesting legislation of this nature, does it have to be specific to a person's name, or can it just be the position?
We know
Because
that.
would that streamline it even better?
I've always seen it with a specific person's name. This is the language we got from Representative Kulik's office. I believe that it has to be specific to an individual.
Gene?
Yeah, I got a ways
You
to
wanna
get up.
hand
Jean Boyden, South Deerfield Road. I'd like to know what other towns in the area have encountered this situation already. I know there are other towns that have older members on the public service departments. And if Kulik's office is involved, then you're probably getting good guidance. But I'd like to know what other towns have taken this up. I know there are many other towns that have older members.
We know about any town in your
Not regarding the request for special legislation.
Okay.
So I just want to reinforce what Derek said. Chief Baker's done a great job as fire chief. We appreciate it. I appreciate it as a select board member. That's not the question here tonight. I hope to reappoint him for a few more years, given the fact that he has the support of all the people that volunteer in the fire department. So I don't think that's an issue. The only issue I was making about the amendment that Tom did is, again, from the select board and the administration standpoint, we're working for you folks, so we try to do due diligence. As we see from prior town meetings, sometimes we get questions that, oh, we don't really know that. But, we do our homework, hopefully, and we come here with good articles. So the issue of, whether this is forever open-ended as the previous amendment, or till age 70, changing it from 67 to 70, 68 to 70, that, personally, I'd be fine with that. The only issue we have is the language is from Kulik's office. They deal with this stuff, and so that's how we present it to you. So in town meeting, when we change it, the hope is that it's fine, but the danger is that we might be told by Kulik that, what, you have to have an age in there. So I only say that. I mean, if the amendment is to 70, that gives Bob or Ron 5 more years on the fire department, and then privy to our reappointment. So that's my point, not to say we don't want Bob for a few more years.
Gene, you want to answer?
Yeah, thank you. My question wasn't directed in support of or against anybody in particular. I'm just asking, is there other precedent for this in the area? We have call departments all over this region, and I'm just wondering if other towns have dealt with this. If Kulik's office is involved, I'm sure he's helped other towns that might have encountered this. Yes or no?
Jeannie, when
Yes.
we called Representative Kulik's office, and we spoke with Paul Dunphy, who's his chief of staff, his aide, Paul said to us that this is very commonly done, but he didn't give us any specifics in terms of what other towns have been done for. But it is commonly done.
Okay.
Kathy Goodfield, Boardwell Ferry Road. With the ages getting to Kulik's office from Conway, I don't think Kulik or did he arbitrarily come up with these ages? Or did we come up with the 67 and the 70? Would that come from Conway?
The ages came from requests that we got
Right,
from both
but
Bob
okay.
Baker and Ron Hall.
All right, but did not come from Kulik's office,
Oh,
so
no,
it should
no.
not make that
No,
much of a
Bob
difference.
asked for
The fact that it's over 65,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
has to be put into legislative
Right, but
request.
Kulik's office did not come up with those ages, so it
No,
should
no,
not
no.
matter.
Joe?
So, can we have either gentleman's agreement to go back to this, so we don't delay this? In other words, if you present it to Kulik or the state legislature, and they say it has to have an age, can we have an understanding or an amendment to that effect that, I'm not against the proposed amendment, but I hate to have Bob have to wait another year or something. So can we have like a fallback that if the open-endedness doesn't work, we fall back to the original article? Either in the form of an amendment or just a gentleman's understanding this.
Bob, would,
I would think that if this is presented to Mr. Kulik's office and as the way it's amended now at this point, and it has to have an age attached to it, which I don't know what does or not. That we have an upcoming meeting here in a few months. I think they will have the answer back from them by then, that there could be another article put on the annual town meeting, and hopefully we'll be discussing age limits at that point. If there has to be an age attached then that would be when it would be attached.
So if this, and if it turns out that we're wrong, we had to have an age, whatever that age is, 99 or 70.
We could do it at the annual.
We could do it at the end of town meeting, and no one will be the worse for the wear. A couple people will be a few months older. Ready to vote? On the amendment, taking out the age limit, 68 and 70 respectively. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Okay, ready to vote on the main motion, or do you want to discuss the main motion as amended? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimous? No, I guess, well, just about unanimous. All right, it passes. Is there a motion for Article 4?
I have a motion.
Okay.
I move that the town transfer $19,245.75 from insurance proceeds and $23,000 from capital stabilization account for the purpose of replacing the highway department pickup truck.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion? The figures are $19,245.75 from the proceeds of insurance, plus $23,000 from the capital stabilization, for a total of roughly, what, $42,000? Discussion? Yes, sir.
What are we buying?
Pickup truck.
Yeah,
What
right.
kind?
Three-quarter ton, half ton, 1 ton.
What are we buying? What kind of pickup truck?
What kind?
What kind, what size?
It's a
What features?
1 ton, replacing the 1 ton, single wheel, rear wheel pickup that I had an accident with and took it out of service. That's what we're replacing.
All right, Mr. Baker.
I understand, or I've heard rumors around the street, that it's a single cab, it's a double cab, it comes with a plow, it comes with a sander, a 6-foot bed, an 8-foot bed. Can you clarify exactly what it is, Ron, for us?
What I'm looking at is, yes, a 4-door cab with a 6.5-foot bed, with a plow. Well, the part that goes on the truck will be reusing the plow that was on the truck. The reason I wanna go to a 4-door is, there's a lot of times we do things that we don't need to take 2 trucks if we can do it with 1. And we have enough employees that when we go to workshops or whatever, it's kind of, useless still, well, it's not useless, but it's kind of, would make it a lot easier if you did it with 1 truck instead of 2 trucks, so that everybody could go, or things like that.
What make?
What's that?
What make?
What make?
Ford, Chevy, Dodge?
It'll probably be a Dodge, because I want a standard transmission, and they're the only ones that offer a standard.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yes, Christina Lampert again. I was just curious, I mean, since I've been away at school, I had heard that there was an accident with the town truck, and I know there was a little tiny blurb about it in the recorder, but I just wanna know what happened to the town truck? I mean, accident, was it kind of, I mean, it was totaled obviously for looking to replace it, but what happened to this town truck specifically that it would cause so much damage that it would need to be completely replaced?
Wow.
That's up, Ron.
Is that really, I mean, it's interesting.
Just so everybody knows, I was out checking the roads at 10 o'clock at night. It was, I covered half the town. I was up on North Poland Road, and I come down a hill, and the road was very icy. I lost control of it. I don't know what what else to say to you? I mean, nobody else here ever has an accident? I mean,
I wasn't contesting that, I just wanted.
well, it sure sounds
what
like
happened.
that's what the question is.
Well, it sounds to me like frankly that it doesn't matter what happened. We're talking now about, we don't have a truck, we gotta replace the truck. So, any comments about that, about the motion? Mr. Baker again?
Before we spend the money to buy this truck, do we have any idea what's gonna happen to our tax bill when it comes out in the last half of this fiscal year? We were notified the first half that it was level funded from last year, and that it was probably gonna be going up considerably in the second half. Do we know where we stand with that at this point?
Well, that's a legitimate inquiry. Before you spend money, do we know?
Not yet.
Not yet. No, there's an answer.
Not yet.
Sorry.
Not one that's gonna help you any, but, yes.
What about insurance?
That's the, 19,245.
So that's all that's covered on the, I mean,
That's the replacement, that's the fair market value of the vehicle that now. Yes, sir.
As I understand the
Could you say that?
position,
Your name?
John Lockhead from Reach Bridge Road, and as I understand the funding of this, it would have no effect on the tax rate. It's coming out of, one, the check we're getting from the insurance company, and two, funds that have already been set aside for equipment use.
That's correct, actually, now that I think of it, yeah.
I'd like to move the question.
Move the question, all right, ready to move the question? You wanna vote on that? All those in favor of no more debate on this, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There we go, all right, ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
2/3 vote, I declare that's 2/3 in favor. Anybody want to hand count and challenge that? Good, all right. Does the selectmen wish to say anything else before we move to adjourn?
Just thank you for coming out.
Thank you all for coming.
Great, thank you.
Great, motion to adjourn? Move second? Okay, we are adjourned, thank you.